The new Boeing whistleblower. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to look into him, actually. Thanks for reminding me. They came forward a couple days ago. New Boeing whistleblower says plane maker cut corners on its Dreamliner jets. I'm doing this not because I want Boeing to fail, but because I want to prevent crashes. Horrifying. After a former engineer claimed the company has schedule over safety mentality that leads to potential defects in the 777 and the 787 Dreamliner jets, Boeing is already undergoing an investigation by the FAA after a door plug flew out of the Alaska Airlines craft mid-flight. In an update in March, the FAA said it had identified non-compliance issues in Boeing's manufacturing process control. Where's the new stuff? The whistleblower added, the truth is Boeing can't keep going the way that it is. It needs to do a little bit better, I think. What an understatement. The complaint alleges Boeing had taken shortcuts. Believes that debris was left in interfaces and composite materials had been deformed during the construction process. Alleges that the defects are generally not detectable through visual inspection and could ultimately cause a premature fatigue failure without any warning. That's scary. Boeing has rejected such claims, because obviously it will. It's not going to come out and be like, yeah, you know, this dude's actually right. We've just been putting all this fucking scrap metal on there and using Dawn dish soap, so he's like right on the money. These things will probably fall apart any minute now. But we met the deadline. These claims about the structural integrity of the 787 are inaccurate. The issues raised have been subject to rigorous engineering examination under FAA oversight, which again, I won't get into too much detail, but Boeing is highly corrupt in pretty much every avenue and has their fingers in a lot of different pies. They don't really get the inspections that they should. This analysis has validated that these issues do not present any safety concerns and the aircraft will maintain its service life over several decades. He claims that he saw the 777 was a rollout on a new assembly process that was done without the necessary redesign of relevant parts, which has led to a misalignment of parts. These chronic defects pose grave risks, and Boeing has ignored his concerns and failed to take remedial action. What a great company. Thanks to Tier 1 full magazine. Rip to him in advance. Yeah, hopefully he's already got funeral plans picked out. And his family's being notified ahead of time. So that way he can spend the last hours he has in this corporeal realm with them. What's going on with the trout population? Anything crazy? Thanks to resub El Mago. No, this is the newest Boeing whistleblower. He's still alive, though I'm sure Boeing will do everything they can to change that quickly. Yeah, that's the one. It's the KZ-ZS-10 Pros. That's what the IEMs are. I did not hear she's retiring, Thomas. Well, that's sad. I hate musicals, but I'm going to hope that Joker 2 is a pleasant surprise and a really good movie, even in spite of being a musical. I've still not played GTFO, but it is a game I plan on playing with friends at some point. It's a Prime Twisted. Did you hear about the Catholic priest who was just jailed after throwing a wild sex orgy where a male prostitute overdosed on erectile dysfunction pills? Can't say I saw that. That's... what a rager he threw, though. Wow. You played Rainbow Six Vegas when you had the 360? Yeah, of course, I loved Vegas. Vegas and Vegas 2 were amazing. You see the new Prince of Persia from the Dead Cells devs? Thanks to resub Bean. No, I didn't. Unless you're talking about the one that just came out not long ago, but I imagine you wouldn't be. The Rogue Prince of Persia? Thanks to Prime Kiwi. The resub Edwin. Okay, I will say one thing. Nothing to do with the game. This is a really cool animation they have for this. The IEMs, Does it matter where I plug them in? Because I have the sound coming through this mic, so I've just plugged them into this mic, but it sounds super fucking flat. There's the Prime Jetalin in the resub code. Is that the IEMs, or is it because it's plugged into the mic? Does it matter where I plug these in? It does matter. Use a mixer. Brother, I'm not using a mixer. That ship has sailed. Might need a DAC. What the fuck is a DAC? Is that gonna be like a Ligma thing or something? Can't they just plug it directly into the computer? Plug it into your motherboard slash PC. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do then. It's kind of what I was thinking. Hold on. Oh shit. Well, that's not gonna work. Alright. That's too far away. They won't reach. Thanks for membership, Miata. Audio jack extension cord, no. Well, I don't have a mixer, obviously. Jesus. What is it? People keep saying DAC. I'll look it up. What is a DAC, and why do you need one? Oh, this is just. I have an old Focusrite. Thanks for membership. Fox. Will that work? No, I doubt it. I don't think I can plug into that. So can I just... Is there any benefit to using the interface over just plugging directly into the PC? Because I can just get an extension, I guess, and just plug into the PC. If the PC has a bad sound card, it makes a huge difference. You get better quality through DAC. True, Drifter. I just can't imagine this would be required for fucking $50 IEMs. There's no way they're that good. The Focusrite will work. I don't think it will, though, because when I tried to plug in my earbuds, they wouldn't work on the Focusrite. This is the Prime Fireworks. Thanks a membership pop. Well, I think the only reason the sound is flat is because I'm plugged into the mic. I feel like if I plugged into the PC, it'd immediately improve it, because the sound card on it, I'm sure, is good. It's just it won't reach the PC without an extension. These are some Bojangles and Tier 1 Twitchy. Why is your PC so far away? It's not, it's just this cord is extremely short. This is the whole cord. And the PC's right here, so it doesn't reach. Just try it for a second through the PC. Okay. We'll see how that sounds, I guess. Hold on. I don't have a whole lot of real estate to work with here. Give me a sec. Oh my god. Okay, let's see how this sounds. It was extremely loud, but it didn't really change the quality. Yikes, that just hurt my ears. That was cranked all the way to max. Oof. There's your resub Yozora. Okay. No such luck there. Thanks, Ethan. And thanks, John. No, not using any headphones or headsets. They're IEMs. Thanks for membership. Halcyon. Oh, of course I remember garbage trucks. So in that case, do I need the DAC or whatever? I haven't really looked into exactly how the Whistleblower passed away here, allegedly unaliving himself. But with everything that's been going on in the aviation industry, to me, from like the little bits I've read, it sounds more like an assassination. This is scary shit, man. I'm telling you. Planes are the devil. I've been saying it since I was a child. And you called me crazy. Let's read some Stoner. The membership wander. And no, I have not. Tin Finger. I don't know who that is. Oh, wait, yes, I have. That's Joe Rogan guest. And yeah, of course, I know the Stalker games. John Barnett, who had worked for Boeing for 32 years until his retirement in 2017, in the days before his death, he had been giving evidence in a whistleblower lawsuit against the company. Boeing said it was saddened to hear of Mr. Barnett's passing. The Charleston County coroner confirmed his death to the BBC on Monday. It said the 62-year-old had died from a self-inflicted wound on March 9th, and police were investigating. Mr. Barnett had worked for the U.S. plane giant for 32 years. From 2010, he worked as a quality manager. In 2019, Mr. Barnett told the BBC that under-pressure workers had been deliberately fitting substandard parts to aircraft on the production line. He also said he had uncovered serious problems with oxygen systems, which could mean 1 in 4 breathing masks would not work in an emergency. He said soon after starting work in South Carolina, he had become concerned that the push to get new aircraft built meant the assembly process was rushed and safety was compromised, something the company denied. Later told BBC that workers had failed to follow procedures intended to track components throughout the factory, allowing defective components to go missing. He said in some cases, substandard parts had even been removed from scrap bins and fitted to planes that were being built to prevent delays on the production line. And he also claimed that tests on emergency oxygen systems due to be fitted to the 787 showed a failure rate of 25%, meaning that 1 in 4 could fail. So he was exposing a lot, clearly, and now he is dead. Seems fishy. Seems very fishy. He's the Prime Kings and couldn't pick a name. He's a resub Sebi. Enjoy Monster Hunter, Calvin. At the time of his death, Mr. Barnett had been in Charleston for legal interviews linked to that case. Last week, he gave a formal deposition in which he was questioned by Boeing's lawyers before being cross-examined by his own counsel. He had been due to undergo further questioning on Saturday. When he did not appear, inquiries were made at his hotel. He was subsequently found dead in his truck in the hotel car park. Speaking to BBC, his lawyers described his death as tragic. In a statement, Boeing said, "We are saddened by Mr. Barnett's passing and our thoughts are with his family and friends." His death comes at a time when production standards at both Boeing and its key supplier, Spirit Aerosystems, are under intense scrutiny. This follows an incident in early January when an unused emergency exit door blew off a brand new Boeing 737 MAX shortly after takeoff from Portland. What interesting timing for him to kill himself. Surely a coincidence. Thanks, Resub Craxon. Yeah, he was a Boeing whistleblower, actively engaged in a lawsuit against Boeing. Same guy who got Epstein. Yeah, maybe they just used the same person. It's just one guy. The planes are starting to fall apart. And Mr. Barnett was trying to expose the truth. Boeing took him out. I think that's what happened here. Oh, is that about the cannibal thing? I saw the headlines for the cannibal. I haven't read about it or anything. And yeah, I heard about the body being driven to the bank to take money out. Thanks, Membership Prodigy. I'm really confused. If the planes are falling apart and they were going to be exposed, is it deliberate? Well, yeah, I think so. Most people would read this and conclude that this was likely a murder. He was engaged in a very important lawsuit with Boeing. And now, obviously, it can't finish because he's dead. And yeah, I'm getting bits and pieces of it, Cake. It's just a lot. Government cover-up tier list win. Not a bad idea. What does Boeing gain from having their planes falling apart? Well, they don't gain anything from that. What they gain is by saving money on the construction as well as meeting strict deadlines for the production line, which is something Barnett was mentioning a couple times throughout this. So like in an effort to be like quick, meet those deadlines on the assembly line, they would use substandard parts, which is why shit keeps falling apart. They don't necessarily gain from having their planes fucking combust in the air, but it is good for business if they're saving money and meeting these strict timetables. I missed that one, Urban. That's cute, though. And that is sad, Lucas. Temu parts? It actually sounds like worse than Temu parts. Like here it says they were going into the bin from scrap bins and fitting them to the planes. You'd be better off buying from Temu. And have not done that, Vincenzo. Thanks for resub run. Corner cutting everywhere with manufacturing, maintenance, and pilot training. Pilot training's a big one, too. We went over this a few times, but you remember when those, like, what was it, 787 Maxes or 737 Maxes? I don't remember. But, like, that new model that kept falling out of the sky and fucking blowing up. That was because they changed something and never educated the pilots on it. So what would happen is, like, the system would put it into a fucking nosedive. And they couldn't correct it. Thanks a Prime Rose. Once they went from engineering leadership to business leadership, it all went to shit. Well, that's the way of things, unfortunately. That was called the MCAS system. Yep, that's the one. Or, no, wasn't it MCAT? Or am I misremembering? How about, let's just look it up. MKAS. You were right. Hey, congrats on the 14-year anniversary meditation. Hope the channel's going well. I'm surely supposed to be on a site working for Boeing. They're building a bunch of new hangars in Florida. It's another place to halfway assemble planes. Cool. Have fun. Yeah, a few of them, Jake. And we've gone back to some of the older ones, like the pizza one. You should check out Suno AI. It's so crazy, the quality of the songs it makes. That's the second time I've heard about that. What are we playing tonight? Siege. Later. And no, I have not, Vestrix. I haven't looked into all of it yet. There's been so much going on in the Minecraft community, it's been hard to keep up with all of it. But I will be checking in on all of it and trying to get all the info. Charlie, you're not getting approved by that guy because esports aren't an Olympic sport. Surprised you didn't make that connection. I know you're joking about the immigration, but I actually got a lot of really good info today about why we've been getting declined. Thanks to Tier 1 LMAO. And one of the things might legitimately be the name of our org, Moist Esports. Unironically. Like I said it as a joke in the video, but today we talked to Matt talked to a really knowledgeable person who also is a specialist when it comes to immigration stuff. And he said that might actually be a real reason, is because of the name. Which is tragic. Absolutely fucking tragic. You hear about the girl who went on a reality show to find her mom, who abandoned her, but discovered she married her brother by accident? What a fucking storyline that is. Nope. News to me. Thanks for membership, Urban. Jesus Christ. That's super sweet. Thanks, Ward. should have used a reputable name like Boeing. Yeah, for our esports organization. Boeing Esports. What does it violate? It doesn't violate anything. Like I said in the video, it comes down to individuals. And the individuals have all of the say-so. So if there's anything they don't like or anything that smells fishy to them, they can just fully, with their own power, say no. So they speculated that the name, since the word moist is so off-putting to so many people, could legitimately be a deterrent. That they're not taking it seriously as like an international thing, regardless of our results, that it is some kind of sham to get them here for some nefarious reason or whatever. And that could legitimately be playing a role in why we're declined and still struggling. Thanks to the anonymous 5 gift subs and the resub bunter. So it was your fault. Unintentionally, yeah. Like, moist is not a bad word. In fact, Moist is one of the largest brands of shampoo. Well, it's not one of the largest. But, like, that Aussie Moist whatever, like, that's a huge brand. Like, I just... It's not a bad word. And no, I don't think so, Frenchie. Thanks to the membership, Maxwell. So what do we name ourselves now? Well, we can't just change the name like that. We've got too many moving parts to just do that willy-nilly. We have a lot of options moving forward, though. It's just a massive fucking headache with this immigration stuff. Thanks to Prime Pixel. What's up, everybody? It's Critical. I've been reading some news stories that I'd like to share with you all because I feel they would have a big impact on your life. So I'd like to just briefly touch on these so that way you can stay up to date and informed. Because knowing is half the battle. In Dallas, a man dubbed the Butthole Tickling Bandit, the Anus Avenger, the Rectum Ruffian, Anal Invader, the Colon Crusader, 007, the Butt Is Not Enough. The list goes on, and I must admit that list mostly contains names I've given him. But anyway, he's been captured and pictured here. He looks like Bert from Sesame Street. If Bert turned to a life of anus-tickling crime, he'd been terrorizing a small community for a few months. Almost all of his break-ins were into the homes of single men. Actually, all of his break-ins were into the homes of single men, and he would tickle their anus while they slept. Now, there's no mention of whether or not he did over-the-pants anus tickling, or if he would actually drop their trousers and tickle their bare asshole. It's a pretty important detail to leave out, so I must admit it's pretty shitty reporting. Now, I also have a theory. I don't think this man was targeting single men. I think he just so happened to keep breaking into single men's houses. I don't think there was any way he would know that he was breaking into a single man's house, so I think he was just ready to tickle any anus he came across, which makes him even more dangerous. So it's really a good thing they got him off the streets. This menace is now behind bars. So, Dallas residents can now sleep easier, knowing their asshole isn't going to be tickled unless they want it to. Netflix, the company behind popular online video game League of Legends, announced today that it'd be retiring its Dominion game mode, much to the dismay of the 5 players who still play it. A shirtless man was arrested for pissing on a fellow passenger and starting a fight between the two while on board an airplane. I think we've all been there though. We've all been in those heated arguments where we have the urge to whip our dicks out and start pissing on each other. This man just followed through on that primal desire, so I can't fault him for that. But what really fucking sucks about this is the man who just took the urine in the mouth, just right in the fucking chin, got arrested for it too. So that's just adding insult to urine. But I think this should really just serve as a lesson, a reminder, if you will, that there's 2 kinds of people in the world. The one who does the pissing, and the one who takes the piss. A brave reporter was stabbed just below the shoulder blade while giving a demonstration on a stab-proof vest. Not much to say about this one other than he clearly got stabbed in the back. The last interesting and important news article I stumbled upon is one only fucking Scooby-Doo could shed any light on. So there's some severed feet that have been washing up on Pacific Northwest shores, and no one has any real explanation for how they're getting there or why there's a severed foot inside of the running shoes they keep finding, and why it's always running shoes, and why it's usually right feet. But the authorities aren't willing to accept defeat, so they've offered kind of a logical explanation explaining it, but I feel as though they're off by a few feet on their explanation. It doesn't exactly cover all the bases, because something very strange is afoot here. I myself have my own explanation, And it's a little, you're gonna have to bear with me here, it's a little far-fetched, but trust me, I know what the fuck I'm talking about with these kind of things. It's pretty clear that there's some type of spirit possessing these shoes and this severed foot, and I think just like the frog and the princess, it's just waiting to be kissed so it can come back to life and emerge as a beautiful pirate. I'm pretty sure I'm right on the money with that one, because you know what they say, if the shoe fits, wear it. And these are about all the interesting news articles I found today, so I just wanted to briefly give you all some important details with what's going on in the world, so stay informed. Another Boeing whistleblower has died. What a weird coincidence that is, right? 2 Boeing whistleblowers dying under mysterious circumstances back to back in a matter of only 2 months? Man, that's peculiar, isn't it? Must just be really bad RNG. No reason to investigate that any further, I'm sure. So for those that don't know, being a Boeing whistleblower is more detrimental to your health than smoking cigarettes. At least the cigarettes kill you slowly over a period of years, whereas being a Boeing whistleblower kills you almost immediately. Like, skydiving without a parachute is safer for you than blowing the whistle on Boeing and all of their shadiness. So, a month ago, there was a Boeing whistleblower named John Barnett who was found dead with apparent self-inflicted gunshot wounds, the timing of which was really interesting considering he was at the tail end of an extremely important lawsuit that he was engaged in with Boeing. And according to everyone that knew him, he was extremely excited to be done with that lawsuit, and in fact, shortly before he was found dead, he'd actually told people that if he does turn up dead, just know he didn't do it to himself. Probably circumstantial evidence, that probably doesn't mean anything. Just don't think too hard and accept the shit that they feed you with the official story that he just decided while sitting in his truck to blow his goddamn brains out. That makes a lot of sense here. I stand by my assessment that John Barnett was assassinated by Boeing. I don't believe it's Boeing themselves, but I believe it's a couple high-ranking members within Boeing that are taking matters into their own hands and doing these things. It's the only explanation that makes any level of sense to this. So I made a whole video breaking down the evidence in the John Barnett case, as well as an entire Red Thread episode dedicated to uncovering all of the shadiness and corruption within Boeing. That company is fucked. Jackson, Windigoon, and myself went through the entire history of Boeing, and they are so corrupt it would make Umbrella Corporation blush at how evil Boeing is. It is shocking. So I really do think that these 2 whistleblowers were the victims of some kind of assassination. So let's talk about the most recent whistleblower. His name is Joshua Dean. I learned about it last night while playing Crab Souls, and well, it's not the real name of the game. The name of the game is Another Crab's Treasure, and it's a banger. But while playing this game, chat told me that another Boeing whistleblower had just turned up dead, and I thought they were memeing. And it turns out they weren't. They were actually telling the truth. Oh. Do you see the second Boeing whistleblower got murked? No shot the other whistleblower is dead. No shot. It's real? No. No, I don't believe that. Hold on, I'm looking that shit up right now. No! What? What? It's just in plain sight. Yeah, whistleblower Josh Dean of Boeing supplier Spirit Aerosystems has died. What? Another Boeing whistleblower is dead. 6 hours ago, yeah. Joshua Dean, a former quality auditor at Boeing supplier Spirit Aerosystems and one of the first whistleblowers to allege Spirit leadership had ignored manufacturing defects on the 737 MAX, died Tuesday morning after a struggle with a sudden, fast-spreading infection. Oh, that's interesting. This time it wasn't bullet to the head? They're getting creative with their assassinations. That's crazy. This is the most dangerous thing you can be as a Boeing whistleblower. That's more dangerous than being like a fucking volcano lava taste tester. This shit, it's just in plain sight. His entire family stated he was healthy until after he blew the whistle. He lived a very healthy lifestyle and the illness was sudden and unexpected. He contracted that stick it to the monneosis from Boeing. Joshua Dean was a quality auditor at Boeing supplier Spirit Aerosystems and was among the first whistleblowers to accuse Spirit leadership of ignoring defects on the 737 MAX, and he died shortly after contracting influenza B, MRSA, and then developing pneumonia. Now, for those that are unaware, Boeing has a history of just ignoring safety precautions and just hiding things. So in the previous case with John Barnett, we actually learned quite a few alarming things, such as There were times where scrap metal was used for Boeing planes in order to meet deadlines. They'd also keep things off the books as much as possible. They even used Dawn dish soap as a lubricant for the aircraft door seals at one point. Then they also used hotel key cards and wet cheesecloths to perform maintenance. Just an absolute smorgasbord of malpractice, at least in my perspective here. Of course, I'm not an aircraft specialist, but using Dawn dish soap and hotel key cards, that doesn't really seem like textbook protocol there. That sounds like something you'd read on WikiHow for a DIY aircraft maintenance at your own home for like an RC aircraft, not a fucking Boeing. So these gentlemen came forward to try and alert the public about what Boeing's been doing, or rather not doing, that they should be, and they've both paid the ultimate price for it. In my eyes, they're heroes for the work they've tried to do here. So being a Boeing whistleblower is basically like just taking a cyanide capsule at this point, it seems. It's just more of a matter of when, not if, you turn up dead, I suppose. Let's go deeper into the case of Joshua Dean here, because this one seems so blatant. His mother and stepfather described him as a health nut who rarely drank and attended church regularly. He started feeling sick around 2 weeks ago. He stayed home from work for a couple days, but things got worse. Sunday, April 21st, is when his mother got a call from him that he was really sick, having trouble breathing, and he went to immediate care, and they told him he had strep throat. She went to check on her son and telling him to call her if he felt worse, and he did call her a couple hours later and said that he was going to the emergency room and that he was scared because they found something in his lungs. He tested positive for influenza B, he tested positive for MRSA, he had pneumonia, his lungs were completely filled up, and from there he just went downhill. This was a stunning turn of events for Dean and his family because he was described as someone who was very healthy. He went to the gym, ran nearly every day, and was very careful about his diet. Quote, "This was his first time ever in a hospital. He didn't even have a doctor because he was never sick. But within days, his kidneys gave out and he was relying on an ECMO life support machine to do the work of his heart and lungs. The night before Dean died, Green said medical staff in Oklahoma did a bronchoscopy on his lungs. The doctor said he'd never seen anything like it before in his life. His lungs were just totally gummed up and like a mesh over them. Unfortunately, it sounds like Dean came down with a severe case of Boeing whistleblower lung, which is a serious medical condition that only affects Boeing whistleblowers in particular. It makes coal miners' lungs look clean in comparison. So I'm not surprised that this was the doctor's first time seeing anything like this, because typically a Boeing whistleblower doesn't even survive long enough to make it to the hospital in one piece. This fucking company is rotten to the core. Green says she asked for an autopsy to determine exactly what killed her son, and results will likely take months. We're not sure what he died of, she said. We know that he had a bunch of viruses, but you know, we don't know if someone did something to him or did he just get real sick. In my unprofessional opinion, I think someone did something to him. I think the infection he contracted was Boeing Hitman disease. I think he was poisoned. This is someone that took their health extremely seriously, and only a short period of time after coming forward with information about Boeing's negligent practices does he get extremely sick and then die, all in a short span of time, with something that doctors had never even seen happen before. That's a little suspicious. And this is the second whistleblower that has died under mysterious circumstances in 2 months. Wow, what a crazy coincidence. To me, this feels like someone or a group of people within Boeing is taking matters into their own hands and making an example out of these whistleblowers, because Boeing is a massive company with so many people in it. And thus, there's a lot of people that are privy to all of the shady shit that they've been doing over the past couple of decades. So, by sending this message, not so subtly, that whistleblowers don't have a long life expectancy, it makes people afraid to come forward with their own accounts. It makes more whistleblowers afraid to come forward. And I think that's the goal with all of it. That, at least in my opinion. Like I said, we did a full dive on Boeing for that Red Thread episode, and this company has been corrupt for a long time. I would not put it past them to do something like this. Maybe not the company as a whole, but at least a couple of bad actors within the company, at the very least. Now let's get into some of the things that Dean was alleging. So he had a degree in engineering, and he took his first job at Spirit in 2019, but was let go amid the layoffs during the pandemic. He then returned to work for the company as a quality auditor. He took the job very seriously and grew increasingly frustrated with what he described as a culture of not counting defects correctly, which is very commonplace when it comes to this. During 2 interviews in January, Dean said that Spirit pressured employees not to report defects in order to get planes out of the factory faster. This is something that John Barnett also said. Now, I'm not saying they don't want you to go out there and inspect a job. You know they do. But if you make too much trouble, you will get the Josh treatment. You will get what happened to me. That's what Dean told NPR. Dean was fired in April of last year in retaliation, he said, for flagging improperly drilled holes in fuselages. I think they were sending out a message to anybody else, Dean said. If you are too loud, we will silence you. Dean described what he saw while working for Spirit in a deposition for a lawsuit filed by the company's shareholders who accused the company of misleading investors by attempting to conceal excessive numbers of defects at the Kansas factory. He was not a plaintiff in the case. In the shareholder lawsuit, Dean said he flagged a significant defect, misdrilled holes in the AFT pressure bulkhead of the 737 MAX fuselages months before he was fired. His deposition lays out a series of pivotal dates. October 2022. In his auditor role, Dean realizes Spirit workers misdrilled holes on the 737 MAX AFT pressure bulkhead, representing a potential threat to maintaining cabin pressure during flight. The lawsuit accuses the company of concealing the problem. April 13, 2023. Boeing publicly reveals learning of a separate defect related to the tail fin fittings on the certain 737 MAX aircraft. Spirit then confirms that defect. April 26, 2023. Spirit fires Dean, saying he failed to flag the tail fin issue. In his testimony, Dean said he told the company officials that he might have missed the tail fin defect because he had just discovered the problem with the bulkheads he inspected and was focused on that. August 23, 2023. Boeing announces it has found fastener holes in the AFT pressure bulkhead on certain 737 MAX airplanes that don't match its specifications, resulting in snowmen due to the multiple holes' elongated shape. It's the problem Dean flagged 10 months earlier. On the same day, Spirit releases a statement acknowledging the issue. The shareholder lawsuit accuses Spirit of concealing the bulkhead defect not only from investors, but also apparently from Boeing. It's important to note that Boeing is currently in talks to acquire Spirit altogether, and in the interview with NPR, Joshua Dean predicted it would be difficult to replace the experienced workforce that Spirit lost during the pandemic. The mechanics aren't as experienced, neither are the inspectors. We've just lost that. He then showed a little bit of optimism for the new CEO who was taking over, saying that he has the chance to be the new sheriff in town, and he closes by saying, "We need to make sure that there is no retaliation or intimidation. This culture of, you're too loud, you'll be moved or silenced, that's got to go." Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that culture went anywhere. In fact, they are silencing people in the biggest possible way, by making it so they can never speak again because they're dead. That is what it seems like to me. This is a problem that runs so deep with Boeing. It's in Spirit, their supplier, and Boeing itself. This is unacceptable. Like, the planes are in terrible condition. There is problems almost every single day with Boeing flights malfunctioning and having all kinds, like oodles and oodles of issues. It really feels like it's only a matter of time before a fatal incident occurs with one of Boeing's aircrafts that would have been entirely preventable if they actually just followed their own safety protocol and actually listened to the quality auditors and the people that are actually supposed to be performing maintenance on these things. It's so baffling to me that we've reached this point where they're so focused on just pumping shit out to meet deadlines that they don't really care if it's put together well. These are things that hold thousands of people's lives daily, and they're just shipping it out as cheaply and as fastly as possible while hiding as many of the defects as they can for as long as they can. That is frightening. Fucking frightening. And the people that are speaking out about it seem to be in an extraordinary amount of danger for some reason. Super weird how 2 whistleblowers just turn up dead under really interesting circumstances so close together. It just, the whole thing reeks of corruption. My heart breaks for the family and friends of John Barnett and Joshua Dean. Like I said, I really do view them as heroes. Whistleblowers are extremely important. To hold these companies accountable and to try and do the right thing is not easy. As that headline said, it takes tremendous courage. You take a huge risk. And unfortunately for these two, it seems like that risk cost them everything. It's super sad. And I really think that it's just right there in plain sight that Boeing has some kind of hand in it. It's fucking sickening. I think Boeing is an evil company. I think Spirit is an evil company. Like, this is just, it's craziness. It's fucking horrifying. So I want to talk about this a little bit. That's it. So yeah. There's not many things in life that I'm afraid of. I think my fears are pretty reasonable, not necessarily odd. Like the fear of dying, or being stuck out in open water with no way out, or something being located on the top shelf that I have to struggle to reach. But one fear that I do have that I actually get ridiculed for, and it's not without, like, I understand why, is my fear of flying. I have a very intense phobia of planes. I don't have a fear of heights, it's just being on a plane. You don't need to spit all the facts at me. I know all the statistics. It's the safest form of travel. Really, it's the safest thing humans do on a regular basis. It's probably more safe than me sitting in this chair right now. I get all of that. I know it's an irrational fear, but I can't shake it. It's just deep-seated. And I've flown 10, 15 times across the 29 years of my life, and every single time it's an anxiety-inducing, miserable experience. I just absolutely despise it. Recently, I've started to feel kind of vindicated in this fear, though. Whereas before I was made the fool, people, you know, painted me as a clown for being afraid of flying. They couldn't wrap their head around why I'd be afraid of it. Now there's been a lot of people coming over to my side over here, because Boeing's been in some hot water. Their planes have just been falling apart in the skies, like the door blowing off, like all kinds of terrible things happening with Boeing's aircrafts. It's been aviation apocalypse for that company. And there was a Boeing whistleblower who was in an active lawsuit with Boeing who turned up dead under very peculiar circumstances. And now Boeing's CEO as well as other top executives are stepping down from the company, so it's just been this septic tank exploding with shit spraying everywhere here. A lot is going on behind the scenes at Boeing, and it's all very odd. Now, as most of you know, I run a show called Red Thread with Jackson and Windigoon, where we dive into cryptids, conspiracies, cults, and cold cases, and we recently tackled the Boeing whistleblower conspiracy, which is about the Boeing whistleblower not taking his own life, but actually being murdered by Boeing for revealing the Krabby Patty secret formula to their aircrafts, which is basically scrap metal. He was talking about all of these awful, like, safety violations and oversights for their aircrafts where they were knowingly putting scrap metal onto their planes. They weren't following protocol. They were doing a lot of shady things, keeping a lot of things off the books on purpose to meet production deadlines. He was a higher up in Boeing when it comes to, like, their aircraft safety and making sure everything functions properly. And he was really concerned and disappointed with how Boeing was handling things, so he started to reveal this information, break the magician's code, and now he's no longer with us. And the circumstances around his death are very odd. So I just wanted to talk about this and show you clips from that Red Thread episode, because since a lot of you know I'm afraid of flying, I've been asked a lot about my opinion on Boeing and the whistleblower situation and all of that. And it's one that I've been paying extremely close attention to and following every step of the way. So here's all the Boeing whistleblower conspiracy information, as well as my take on all of it. To really start picking apart the problems with Boeing, I think it's important to give a little bit of a history lesson behind them, so I'm going to play this clip from the Red Thread episode that kind of sets the stage for why everything changed so quickly for Boeing after a merger gone wrong with a fucking parasitic infestation that took over the company from the inside out. So, 1997, Boeing acquired McDonnell Douglas, which is now often seen as a misaligned merger. The merger was worth over $13 billion. McDonnell Douglas had found it increasingly harder and harder to compete with Boeing and Airbus, lacking resources to be able to work on new product development, and this merger was Douglas's way out of the industry. At the time, Boeing had an engineering-first ethic which was quickly overpowered after this change by McDonnell Douglas's more profit, money-making mindset. So you can see where the holes start to show here. And this is something that even in recent articles is mentioned quite a bit.
Well, it was a massive merger at the time. McDonnell Douglas had a significantly different ethos and, like, organizational structure behind the scenes, which kind of explains probably why they were in trouble in the first place, because
yeah,
Boeing,
you would think.
Boeing succeeded over them because they put technological innovation ahead of business in most senses. I mean, they were still a profitable business, don't get me wrong, but they definitely focused a lot on the engineering side of things, engineering excellence. And then somehow they merged with McDonnell Douglas, and McDonnell Douglas is the one that's seen steering the ship from then on. That has never made sense to me. Like, Boeing was the more profitable, more healthy company, and they kind of like saved McDonnell Douglas in a way by merging with them, and then McDonnell Douglas like kind of infects the company. It's never made sense to me.
I think it's just, I don't even think it's necessarily a product of the merger. It's a product of the time where everything became more profit driven. So McDonnell Douglas's like ethos of money making first probably is what was prevalent, not so much their structure.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So hey, this is a very cool name. Harry Stonecipher, the Boeing CEO at the time of the merger.
Sounds like a Bond villain.
I know, it does sound like a Bond villain.
It's so cool. I love that name. I wish my last name was Stonecipher. It's so fucking sick.
That's an anime name. So he was determined to change the idea of the company from engineering firm to a proper business. Tens of thousands of jobs were cut, and Boeing moved from Seattle to Chicago in 2001. This was done to remove the Strategy Council of Business from being directly associated with other units of the company, thus allowing them to focus more on business decisions and long-term strategy plans without meddling from people actually building the planes. With this drastic change in the company, where now it was all about money-making first, print as many doubloons as possible, Mr. Krabs is running Boeing, they started to throw safety and quality to the wayside, at least according to the Whistleblower and a lot of the things that were going on behind the scenes that were so shady. Now I want to continue setting the stage here because the problems for Boeing really started to escalate over the last decade or so. Boeing created the Maneuvering Characteristic Augmentation System, or MCAS, which is now an infamous system, which I'm sure we're going to talk about very soon. It's described as one of their biggest and most fatal mistakes. It was designed to be a flight stabilizing software that would automatically adjust the aircraft's flight controls under certain flight conditions, but Boeing refrained from telling many people about this system, including the pilots of the aircraft itself.
What could go wrong, right?
Whoa, what?
So, MCAS obtained its data from aircraft's angle of attack, the AOA sensor, which is used to measure the angle between the aircraft's relative wind and its longitudinal axis. This in turn would help MCAS determine if the plane is at risk of stalling, then triggering corrective actions. If by any chance the information relayed from the AOA sensors were wrong or the sensors were faulty, the MCAS system could erroneously send the plane into a fateful nosedive. This is exactly what happened on the Lions Air Flight 310 in 2008 and the Ethiopian Airways Flight 302 in 2019. Tragically, everyone on board both flights died.
Just for audio listeners, Charlie meant to say 2018 then. There wasn't a 10-year difference. Yeah, you said 2008. 2008.
Oh, sorry. I meant 2018.
Yeah. So anyone who was around at that time period, though, remembers when those two crashes happened because they were enormous in the news. It caused Boeing to ground all the flights. Hundreds of people died. It was a very tragic event.
Oh, man.
They also recalled the 737 MAX in response as well, if I remember correctly. They took the 737 MAX out of production for a little while, and I believe airports refused to fly them.
Yeah, for a two-year period, I think. Yeah.
So the sensor read data wrong and like pulled against the pilot to adjust, which caused a crash.
So the AOA, the angle of attack sensor, which is a sensor on the peripheral, like the outside of the aircraft itself, could feed incorrect data to the MCAS system in certain situations, and then the MCAS system would operate on that incorrect information and essentially pull the plane.
Was there no way to override it? You would think
there was.
But since they didn't train the pilots on it and the pilots weren't aware of it, they didn't know they could override that system.
Dude.
So it just,
as we're going to get into, the reason as to why the pilots weren't educated about this is so infuriatingly greedy.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
So, Boeing had insisted to airlines that the pilots did not need any additional training to fly the new aircraft, and even more damning, all mentions of MCAS were removed from the operations manual that the pilots relied on. As Boeing was in a losing race against Airbus, the 737 MAX needed to fly exactly like the 737 so that pilots didn't have to go through new simulator training for certification.
And remember, just real quick, I didn't write this, but remember that it didn't fly exactly like the previous 737 because the engines were more forward on the plane, creating that tilt. So because of that, that's why they introduced the MCAS to offset that, so that it would fly as close to the 737 as possible.
You make a system that makes it feel like the old one.
Exactly, so they can
accommodate for when that system doesn't work correctly. I see.
Yeah.
Training the pilots would have taken a lot of extra time, money, and would be unattractive to potential airline customers. MCAS was the supposed solution so that in certain, very specific situations, it would slightly adjust the aircraft to correct its flight position to create a more similar flying experience akin to the previous model that the pilots were used to. However, when this happened in the real world, pilots and MCAS were in a sort of fight with each other for controls, with pilots trimming the aircraft manually and then MCAS trimming it again, and this cycle continuing with the pilot unaware that there was a hidden system essentially acting against them. After the tragedies of the Lions Air and Ethiopian airline crashes, Boeing suffered a huge financial loss. In 2022 and 2023, they paid out over $1 billion to 737 MAX customers. They were charged with fraud as well as conspiracy and entered an agreement with the Department of Justice with the agreement that they were to pay over $2.5 billion. They also grounded the 737 MAX for nearly 2 years, with regulators conducting investigations, a move costing Boeing around $20 billion in fees and fines.
So they didn't end up making more money in the first place. They made these decisions to make more money, and now they've lost over $20 billion, which I'm not sure how much that is in the grand scheme.
They have a net worth of $109 billion, so...
That is actually substantial then.
The negative publicity just continues to, accumulate day by day. For example, one United Airlines Boeing 777 experienced a wheel loss during takeoff. Another United Airlines aircraft slid off the runway upon landing due to the landing gear malfunctioning. There's been multiple instances of flames shooting out of engines that have been reported. Certifications have reportedly been falsified. Debris has been discovered near electrical wiring. Loose parts have been found in door panels. Components from scrap bins have allegedly been reused in installations and constructions of planes themselves. A Boeing 777 was forced to land after hydraulic fluid was leaking during takeoff. Additionally, engineers have been outsourced for low wages, with some employees reportedly being paid as low as $9.50 an hour, and the FAA criticized Boeing's safety procedures as inadequate. And there's so many more that Jackson could have pulled from. Like 2 days ago, a Boeing flight engine blew up, caught fire, and they had to emergency land. A week ago, this one I think a lot of you heard, the door blew off of a plane mid-flight.
Yep. That's the one I focus on, yeah.
Oh, so you have it right here. So, most recently, Friday, January 5th, 171 passengers and 6 crew members were aboard the Alaskan Airline Flight 1282 on a Boeing 737 MAX. They departed from Portland at 5:07 p.m. with no signs of stress or worry from the captains or flight staff. However, minutes later, as the plane reached an altitude of 16,000 feet, a loud bang was heard through the aircraft. A hidden emergency door and its cover, known as a door plug, was suddenly sucked out from the aircraft, leaving a giant hole in its wake. The change in pressure was so strong that if passengers were sitting in the seats directly at the impacted door, they would most certainly have been jettisoned. Mobile phones were ripped out of hands, a t-shirt was ripped off the back of a young boy, the plane's interior around the gap was torn apart to its core, and the surrounding seats bent and misshapen. There's just so many examples of Boeing planes malfunctioning in recent years as the quality of their builds have apparently diminished behind the scenes. So we focused a lot on that airline door being blown off. That was one we harped on a lot, and diving deep into how that happened and all of the negligence and just irresponsibility behind it. The main thing that contributed to that is they didn't put the fucking bolts in on it. Like, they didn't finish actually putting the bolts in on the door. It's from top to bottom, so much has gone wrong with Boeing. And it's led to concerned individuals like John Barnett, the Boeing whistleblower, coming out to tell the public, inform them about what's happening with Boeing and how dangerous it is.
Following this, Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun himself has encouraged customers to conduct their own reviews on 737.
Hey, we don't feel like paying for anyone to like check our shit. Can you guys just do it yourself and like let us know?
Just check the doors when you get on.
Encourages customers to check the bolts. Oh my gosh. Like, hey, next time you get onto one of our planes, just make sure all the screws are there. Yeah. You probably know where they're supposed to go.
Guys, it's probably fine, but don't take our word for it. In fact, we want you to do it yourself.
Yeah. And then in the court case, it's like, Your Honor, they checked the door. You know, it's really their fault.
The onus was on them.
Every single passenger is deputized upon entering a 737 as an official certified inspector.
I'm going to assume, because Boeing's customers are the actual airlines and not us individually, so maybe he meant the customers as in the airlines conduct their own reviews, but even then,
I imagine.
That's still such a dodgy thing to say still, like, hey, you guys should check the doors.
It's funny to imagine
we weren't looking.
When you sit down on a plane and the stewardess is giving you like the in-flight instructions, it's like, please ensure that all bolts and screws are in the correct place on the secret door you don't know you're sitting next to.
Yeah, when the oxygen mask dropped down during an emergency, they also drop an Allen wrench. It's like, okay, now everyone tighten your shit quick.
Out of the 89 audits conducted by Boeing, only 56 passed. They found that Dawn... What? No way.
No ridiculous amount of failure.
What? They found that Dawn dishwashing liquid was being used as a makeshift lubricant during door fittings, and a hotel key card was used to check a door seal, which are not approved practices.
I can't believe those are approved practices. Where does it say in the technical guidebook that you can't use Dawn dishwashing liquid? What are you meant to use then?
I love it's like the Air Bud argument. I mean, there's nothing in the rule book that says a dog can't play basketball. Why can't I use a hotel key card to check the door seal? John Barnett. He was an American-born aerospace engineer and longtime Boeing employee turned whistleblower. Born February 23rd, 1962 in Pineville, Louisiana, Barnett worked at Boeing for 32 years with a long stint from 2010 through 2017, working as a quality control manager for Boeing's 787 Dreamliner airplane at the South Carolina plant. As quality control manager, John was directly involved in ensuring each plane had passed supposed Boeing quality checklists, essentially being one of the few individuals who was innately aware and knowledgeable about Boeing's supposed commitment to producing reliable and safe aircraft. Due to stressful working conditions, Barnett's doctor advised that job-related stress would likely cause a heart attack unless he were to quit. He retired in 2016. Upon his retirement, John Barnett came forward to the press to make allegations about various claims of malpractice at Boeing. His initial claims first came to the BBC and included allegations that many employees were severely overworked and Boeing was not providing consistent and appropriate maintenance to the aircraft they were responsible for manufacturing. He also made the troubling evidence-based claim that the oxygen systems of the brand new Boeing 787 Dreamliner range of aircraft might be faulty or otherwise defective as a byproduct of lax maintenance at Boeing. He provided tests that showed a failure rate of 25% for the oxygen systems. In 2019, Barnett would appear in a New York Times article where he would go on to make further claims about metal shavings that posed a danger to the aircraft themselves. Boeing denied all allegations made by Barnett. However, the FAA has since conducted several reviews that seem to corroborate Barnett's claims.
Yeah, 25% for the oxygen systems. So 1 in 4 people on those planes are not getting oxygen in the case of an emergency.
That's still a positive survival rate. That's acceptable losses.
It's not bad, and they wouldn't need oxygen anyway because the plane will be in a nosedive. So it's
not What are they going to do? Tell someone?
Yeah, it's actually probably better for Boeing if no one gets oxygen, so that way there's no squealing.
Have you heard that old conspiracy theory that the reason you brace with your head against the chair in front of you in a plane crash is to immediately break your neck?
Oh yeah,
so you don't feel the pain of the crash. Or
something. The old Boeing survivors pose.
So then here's some more claims from Barnett. So, reprimanded for email usage, Barnett asserts that a senior manager reprimanded and downgraded Barnett for his usage of internal email services as a tool for expressing process violations in lieu of face-to-face conversations, which Barnett assumes had meant he shouldn't put problems in writing. This was seemingly a way for Boeing to avoid a paper trail of problems that Boeing would prefer swept under the rug, which is relevant with the Alaska Airline Flight 1282, which is the door blowing off, where Boeing apparently doesn't have any written documents pertaining to the faulty installation of the door module. Barnett also alleges that the manager pushed Barnett to get more used to working in the gray areas and help find a way while maintaining compliance. This speaks to a direct willingness and culture at Boeing where employees and managers are willing to sacrifice quality control to keep productivity high and ensure deadlines are met. Then there's also defective parts claims, where Barnett claims that a senior manager installed a defective, scrapped and dented hydraulic pipe in a plane. Barnett followed procedures and filed the complaint with Human Resources, which was unable to substantiate the claim after claiming they had followed through with an investigation. He also claims that he would go on to continuously raise issues of several more missing and defective airplane parts to management with the fear that they had either been accidentally or intentionally installed in aircrafts. Allegedly, management instead directed him to finish the paperwork on the missing parts without necessarily determining where they had gone.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
They fell into the
They'll
fucking
show
back
up.
rooms. Who cares? Just make note that they're missing. Barnett claims no further action was taken by managers. His claim that workers did not sufficiently follow component tracking procedures with the goal of preventing delays on the production line was backed up by a 2017 Federal Aviation Administration report that determined that at least 53 non-conforming parts were missing, with the order that Boeing take remedial action. Barnett additionally claimed that they had to change the locks on the scrap storage section of the facility, where faulty or defective parts were kept, because people would continuously grab parts from the storage to install on planes.
Fuck.
You have
They
to
have a
lock
real
up.
problem at Boeing.
You have to lock up the scrap shed because they keep trying to build planes with them.
Just fucking get rid of them, burn
Insane.
them. Stop
It's like-
them
it's
from
like-
being installed in these planes.
It's like everyone's rats like running around scavenging. Like, no, stop. Get back.
Tony Stark built this Boeing in a cave with a bunch of scraps.
So bad.
Metal shavings. Barnett further alleged that he had discovered what he described as clusters of metal shavings that were erroneously left near electrical systems for flight controls in several 787s. The safety implications of this was that if there were shavings, the implications of this was if the shavings were to penetrate the electrical wiring responsible for powering the flight control systems, the results could have been catastrophic. So, in 2024, Barnett continued to issue warnings about Boeing and their work culture and vehicle safety, particularly following Alaska Airlines Flight 1282. Barnett would go on to file an AR-21, which is a law that supposedly protects airline safety whistleblowers against retaliatory actions by employers, with the claim that Boeing had undermined his career because he had raised safety concerns at the Charleston plant. It's worth mentioning he was in an active lawsuit against Boeing, and he was in South Carolina, and on Saturday, he was intended to provide further answers to questioning, but did not show up to the downtown office of Boeing's defense firm for the final day of the 3-day deposition. He did not respond to calls over that day or the following. He was found deceased shortly after in his truck at a hotel parking lot from what Charleston County Coroner's Office described as a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Prior to his death, Barnett reportedly told a family friend that, "If anything happens to me, it's not suicide." Boeing responded to his death by releasing a statement that read, "We are saddened by Mr. Barnett's death and our thoughts are with his family and friends." Barnett's family claimed that he was looking forward to having his day in court and hoped that it would force Boeing to change its culture, though was suffering from PTSD and anxiety attacks as a result of being subject to hostile work environment at Boeing, which we believe led to his death. His lawyer told the CBS News that he was in very good spirits and really looking forward to putting this phase of his life behind him and moving on. We didn't see any indication he would take his own life. No one can believe it. Barnett was found inside his vehicle, bleeding from his right temple with a silver pistol found in his hand and something allegedly resembling a note in the passenger seat. A groundsman told police that he had heard a pop around 9:24 a.m., but the rain had apparently muffled the sound. Barnett and his lawyers had filed their first complaints in 2017 in Barnett v. Boeing. It seems suspicious, to say the least, that Barnett would commit suicide when his case was finally in the final stretch. A family member told his lawyer, Turkowitz, what was written on the note, but that it didn't sound like John. Which, I imagine it didn't.
It sounded like Harry Stonemason or whatever his name was.
Harry Stone Cipher.
Yeah, Stone Cipher.
I think the biggest thing that makes no fucking sense here is not only the timing of it, where he's like in the last phase of this, but also he decides to blow his brains out in the parking lot as opposed to his room. Why? That makes no sense. If he was going to kill himself, it'd likely be in his room, not in the fucking parking lot.
Yeah, that is a good point. I didn't think of that. Maybe he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to create a mess for like the house cleaners or something. And so he figured that his car would be the most...
Well, then he's creating a mess for the tow truck company and every human being that would be walking outside and might see a blood-splattered window.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why you would choose to do it in the car realistically.
Well, because he didn't choose to. It wasn't a suicide that he consented to. It does ultimately seem unlikely that Boeing would plan to murder a whistleblower, but only because there are many other whistleblowers and it would be highly impractical for Boeing to assassinate all of them. There's an interesting connection here where lawyers who drafted Jeffrey Epstein's 2008 immunity deal are also connected to those who created Boeing's signed January 6, 2021, because Epstein needs to come up in every Red Thread episode somehow.
It's actually crazy that they are connected, though.
So, with so many circumstances that serve as evidence of Boeing's malpractice, its failure of 33 of 89 FAA audits, the jammed rudder that caused a near miss in Newark, a wing coming apart on a San Francisco to Boston flight that was forced to make a premature landing, the use of dish soap and hotel room keys to check door seals, and of course, its failure to install a single bolt that would have prevented the door on the Alaskan Airline Flight 1282 from being ejected from the fuselage, it's impossible to believe that the company would be able to argue it hasn't broken the DPA. But as the DPA is written, the only actual requirements of complying with the DPA are that Boeing cooperate fully with domestic and foreign regulatory authorities in any investigations during the 3 years in which it remains in effect. It's essentially toothless. Yep.
Yeah, because the whole thing is just saying, like, well, you can make mistakes as long as you let us look at them. And they're like, okay.
Yeah. Or you at least pretend to let us look at them.
Yeah.
Like with the footage being overwritten and all that.
Yeah, there's a piece of paper somewhere that says we looked at them. As long as that happens, we're fine. Yeah.
Boeing maintains that it has cooperated fully and transparently, but that it is unable to provide documents that the agency is seeking because it doesn't possess the documents and, indeed, no longer documents the repairs and procedures the agency is asking for documentation of, in reference to the installation and maintenance of the door. This is further evidenced and backed up by John Barnett's previous claims that Boeing has an internal culture that will aim to avoid any written record of faults and mistakes at any cost, choosing to lose documentation at any chance if it means they won't be held culpable with evidence pertaining to their increasingly lax quality control and maintenance standard. This has all led to the enormous shift in public perception of the company. The once famous phrase, "If it ain't Boeing, I'm not going," is no longer relevant. Indeed, I'll be more comfortable flying an Airbus plane for the foreseeable future when possible. That's Jackson.
That was meant for me.
I won't be comfortable flying any plane.
You'll be slightly more comfortable if you're on an Airbus.
And I don't even
it's
think
definitely possible.
This is another aspect of it. I don't think it is Boeing who would have carried out a hit. It's not like the boardroom got together and had a discussion and said we need to kill this guy. Could have just been a single individual within the company whose career would be threatened by this information coming to light. So he just has it taken care of without consulting anyone else.
Yeah.
My main hang up with the whole assassination idea, and I agree with you, Isaiah, mostly. I think it's definitely possible that it was something like that. My main hang up with the idea is just how much I think Boeing would have been aware how much noise would have been generated by an assassination on a whistleblower, and I think they would have known that they would have had that kind of perception if that were to occur. So I don't know if it was necessary on their end as well. Like was said in the document, there's a whole bunch of other whistleblowers currently from Boeing. They already have this reputation issue. I don't see why it would be necessary for them when they're pretty much invulnerable anyway.
Necessary is probably not the right word. I feel like the reason they would have killed him in particular is just because of how high profile he, I don't know any of the other whistleblowers. I don't think many of you do, but Barnett was in the news. He was bringing these problems to the public sphere. Like, hey, Boeing's shit is made out of shit. Like, they're using scrap metal. It's not safe. I wouldn't fly it. Like, this kind of stuff. Like, he was a pretty important figure in getting people more aware of just how, poor their quality was. And he had a very high-ranking position. Like, he would be a very strong authority on just how bad their quality control is. So it's someone people would put their faith in to know these things. So I feel like he would be one of those people they'd be afraid of. Now, whether or not they'd necessarily be like, we have to kill him, I don't know. But maybe someone was panicking like, hey, if this keeps going, if he keeps dropping these, bombshells, we're going to suffer big problems. And maybe someone just, impulsively decided we need to do something about it and decided to kill him. Because it just seems highly unlikely that someone who's right at the end of like a very passionate fight decides to take their own life. And if it's not suicide, then another thing that's equally possible is maybe Boeing started putting out like outside pressure on him, like, hey, threatening his family, we'll do something to them. We'll make sure your family's in financial ruin. We'll make sure their lives are miserable if you don't stop this, that kind of thing. Like they could have
suicide.
Yeah, they could have like coerced him into it. Like they mentioned he was suffering from like PTSD and anxiety attacks. So maybe Boeing plays into that angle by making all of these like bigger threats that like make his anxiety even bigger and greater. So like even if they didn't necessarily get it like fucking Agent 47 out there, like I still think they could have driven him to it, like forced it upon him, which I'd still consider like a hit.
Yeah, that's definitely possible as well.